Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So this came out today. Israel hits Syrian site said to be linked to chemical weapons. If that header would have said Syria hits Israeli site, heads would have exploded. Heads would have exploded. If you want to talk about a double standard, Israel hits Syrian site said to be linked to chemical weapons. Now, understand, this is the media. Just because somebody said linked to be linked to chemical weapons, they're not giving you any evidence. They're not giving you anything. This guy did something, and that guy is justifying it by saying he had drugs on him. I mean, chemical weapons. He had chemical weapons on him. Clean shoot. Israel attacked a military site in Syria's Hama province early on Thursday, the Syrian army said. And a war monitoring group said that the target could be linked to chemical weapons production. Again, it could be linked to unicorns. The airstrike killed 2 soldiers and caused damage near the town of Maisif, an army statement said. It warned of dangerous repercussions of this aggressive action to the security and stability of the region. And that's the main point. That's the main point. If Syria retaliates, if they retaliate, certainly the United States is going to get involved into the conflict. Any action towards Israel will pull in the United States. Israel knows that any action will pull into the United States, so they feel pretty comfortable that their big brother is always going to back them up. That's an amazing thing for you to go into another country and murder 2 of his soldiers with a sense of impunity. I find that to be absolutely amazing. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which monitors the war, said the attack was on a facility of the Scientific Studies and Research Center, an agency which the United States described as Syria's chemical weapons manufacturer. Again, the United States said it was a weapons manufacturer. I mean, the United States doesn't get things wrong. That's what it told us. This is third-person information. This is a person who did something, claiming they had a justified reason for doing something. The just reason is the thing they told you. The information they gave you is purely what they just told you. They're only telling you that, yes, we killed 2 of their people. Yes, we invaded their country. But yes, they had chemical weapons. You have to purely take their word for what took place. Certainly, we've grown up a little bit since taking their word for it. I find this to be amazing. Now, I think the crux of this is right here. An Israeli army spokesman declined. Where is it? Right here. The observatory said strikes also hit a military camp next to the center that was used to store ground-to-ground rockets, and where personnel of Iran and its ally, the Lebanese Hezbollah group, had been seen more than once. I don't give a shit who was seen where. That's their country. That's a sovereign border. You've just attacked another country. And understand what I mean when I say right here, this is the crux of it. They don't like who Syria hangs out with. That's what that's about. That would be no different than the North Korean army attacking a particular convoy or something that kills the United States and a South Korean soldier, and they say, well, hey, he was hanging out with South Korea. We don't like South Korea. So it is okay and just for us to go into their country and murder their civilians or murder their soldiers. That's amazing to me. That's absolutely amazing to me. So the most that the Syrian government is likely to do is go and bitch to the UN, who's not going to do squat. Now, here's the catch. Did Donald Trump or elements in the United States government put Israel up to this? Meaning, the United States wants to get further involved in Syria, and they try to come up with some provocation to get Israel attacked, which would give the United States pretext to go into the region. That's the first part. Second part. Did Israel do this purely on their own volition? They unilaterally made the decision to go into Syria and attack that country. They could have. It's very possible. Now, both of those conclusions come up to the same point, though. Any attack on Israel brings the United States into the region. Everybody knows it. That's not something that's a mystery or a surprise to anybody. Everybody knows it. Israel's behavior in that region is somewhat of a provocation. If Syria attacks, the United States comes into the region. If the United States comes into the region, this pulls Russia into the conflict. Russia pulls into the conflict, automatically pulls China. At least that's the way I see it. I have a strong belief that Russia and China are united. They've been hanging out at each other's military exercises, so yes, I assume they're united. If Russia is allied with Syria, then yes, China is also in that mix. This is the makings of something that looks extraordinarily nasty based on Israel's behavior in that region. If Donald Trump doesn't want to get embroiled into a conflict in the Middle East, he better rein them in. He better rein them in. Other American presidents were able to rein them in. They need to rein them in. They're being fucking nuts. They've just attacked another country. Now, the catch is, they're trying to say that the United States described it as a chemical weapons manufacturer. That's why I asked the question, did the United States have anything to do with this? Did the United States push them up for it? Was Israel being a lapdog of the United States because the United States couldn't get into the conflict further? Essentially, was Israel being an arm of the United States? Either way, Israel has just invaded a sovereign nation and has just murdered 2 of its troops. And it's using the pretext of, well, the United States told us there were chemical weapons there. Reuters couldn't even bring themselves to say were chemical weapons there. Could be linked to chemical weapons. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. We've gotten to the point that things that these guys say is completely distrusted from the moment they say it, because usually they have a pretext to lie. Israel wanted to hit that military installation. The main part of the strike probably wasn't a chemical thing, because there was no chemical thing. At least I don't think there was. I think the main point of the strike was right here. Personnel, ground rockets, etc., etc. They didn't necessarily like who these guys were hanging out with, and they wanted to strike at that particular region. They used the pretext of the chemical weapons, a bogus story, to do it. If you notice, the main point of the article is chemical weapons. The secondary strike is relegated to a minor position. I would argue that the secondary strike is the main strike. The chemical weapons is the pretext. That's my opinion. That's my thinking of it from the standpoint of looking at this. Seymour Hersh came out before and said those weapons didn't come from, or the Syrian gas didn't come from Syria. That most likely came from elements of the opposition, elements that the United States government were funding and supporting. That's amazing, right? The other part is, when Donald Trump was questioned about this, Donald Trump had an interesting answer. U.S. President Donald Trump said he had not heard a report that Syria had used chemical weapons again. But nothing would change. It would be extremely upset if he was using chemical weapons, he said in response to a question at a news conference in Washington. As far as Syria is concerned, we have very little to do with Syria other than killing ISIS. What we do is kill ISIS. Either Trump is being disingenuous in the sense of saying, I am sending Israel to do our handiwork because we can't get involved because Russia. Or he's being earnest and is somewhat winking at the camera like, look, I haven't heard Syria having anything to do with chemical weapons. We have nothing to do with Syria. Which, to some degree, is almost hanging Israel out to dry. Israel is saying we attacked the chemical weapons depot. Trump is saying we haven't heard anything else about chemical weapons. I make the point that the strike had nothing to do with chemical weapons. I immensely disbelieve it. I think it had more to do with Israel doesn't like who these guys hang out around. And this to store ground-to-ground rockets where personnel of Iran and its ally Lebanese group hung out. That's the attack. That's the attack. That's my take on it. That's my political / chess take on it. What I do know is I mentally disbelieve the things that these guys say unless these guys are giving evidence to convince me of it. The only thing I'm hearing are their words. And ultimately their words are like, clean shoot. Clean shoot. We attacked them, and we had just cause to attack them. Trust us. Which I don't understand why. I don't understand why. I'll leave it at that, man. We can't have countries unilaterally attacking other countries. And at the end of the day, any attack on Israel at that point brings the United States into the war, meaning Israel is doing massive provocation. Would Israel want the United States embroiled into a larger conflict in that region? Maybe. Would elements of the United States government want the United States involved into a larger conflict in that region? Maybe. Oh, we have our questions. So, I'll leave it at that. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the work through Patreon. Thanks guys.